On this video, we're gonna talk to my homie Brett, Raio, and some of his political leanings. Stay tuned. Hey, yo, what's going on? My name is Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live out God's dream for your life. And a lot of that has to do with, I believe, having conversations and seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. So right now, I got my homie, Brett Raio, super talented singer-songwriter. What do you describe yourself as? Singer-songwriter? Acoustic? Mr. Boomin' popping on Instagram himself. That's really how I was like, yo, this dude is booming. We're hanging out. We just had Elevation Conference 2019. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, I'm from Maine, and I, sing and write songs. I've always love making music. I love Jesus Christ, and so it just kind of works out good. It's a good collaboration there. Making music glorify Him. So. Yeah, just started making music, started performing, my elementary school, music teacher was huge in that, just getting me to perform at a talent show at school, and then I just kept making music, started recording it, and then started, just, as you go, you get better, you know what I mean? The more you sing, the better of a singer you are, it's just, practice, so, and I love it, so it's not like a job, so it's the best thing.
Yeah, and how old are you?
I'm 17.
Wow, so you're still in high school?
Yeah.
Freak, man.
Yeah.
Jeez, wow, okay, so... I really kind of took notice because you always showed a lot of love, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're one of those people that I just started recognizing your handle, but it wasn't until we were doing this Instagram review on YouTube and you sent in your thing and you were like, haha, roast me. And me and Zach Sparazzo on this channel looked at your Instagram, we're like, this dude is booming. You had 60,000 followers at the time, amazing engagement. How did you do that from at 17 with just a guitar and just your phone?
Yeah, a lot of it's just interacting, a lot of it's just engaging with, people who, might show interest in what you're doing, you know what I mean? So I sent a lot of DMs, I messaged a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, a lot of just engaging, and then the right people find you and, the right people post about you, and it's just a lot of engaging, Is
it fair to say that you took, and when you say engaging, right, that's kind of like a technical term, but what does it say when we use the word engaging? Is it really just you being friendly and conversing with people on social?
Yeah, I really think if you just, positivity is key, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think a lot of people are looking for purpose, you know what I mean? A lot of people are, they're depressed, you know what I mean? I think social media has a play in that, but I think either way it's going to happen, people are going to feel that way. Social media just amplifies what's already there, you know what I mean? And so a lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are feeling, empty inside. If somebody tells them that Jesus Christ loves them, that's huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of people hear that.
And you feel like because you're offering a voice of hope or a solution, just someone positive on social, even though you're from a Christian worldview, your audience isn't exclusively Christian. I feel like a lot of people that leave comments on your joints ain't Christians. You know what I'm saying? So is it really just as simple as have conversation, be friendly, make good music, and engage?
Yeah, it really is you'll be surprised how many people I have Satanists on there, you know what I mean? Crazy stuff, and it's it's you didn't I didn't even know that stuff was real just a year ago,
Yeah.
But it's real, and it's but I still love them and I care about them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As Christians, that's what we do, and it's and I think that hearing that, a lot of people have misconceptions about Jesus Christ,
Sure.
Because man can take that,
Yeah.
But I think when they really hear it and they're really hear the truth of who Jesus Christ is, what He's about, they're blown away,
Yeah, and I do agree that. I do feel like if people who are far from God actually got an accurate glimpse of who Jesus was, that is uber attractive and awesome.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree.
So that's dope, and I do feel like you exemplify that really well on your platform. So we've been having some interesting conversations here on some social issues. We just had my friend Dr. Bruce Hoskins, who's a pro-choice leaning Christian. And just kind of got his thing on the whole abortion debate. You are a Trump supporter, and no, I think you are. I think it's cool, and I think the cool thing about you is one, you're young, so I don't know if you necessarily fit in the demo, and two, you're very articulate in the way you explain your position. So I'm curious as someone that I'm not the biggest fan of Trump. I also wasn't a big fan of Hillary and the other option, and I voted Libertarian. That perhaps probably don't know that. Politically, I'm probably as agnostic as you can get. I'm very personally conservative when it comes to my home and my ideals and my values, but I tend to lean liberal socially, kind of in line with a libertarian position. So like, just kind of break down like what is the appeal, and how, like what is the appeal? Why do you appreciate him? Was it, because I'm really curious.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, like, like there's like comments he's made that people are like, that's whack, and he's definitely said things that I wouldn't personally say.
Sure.
And if I had my past, I wouldn't do it again. You know what I mean? Like, he says stuff I wouldn't want to say, and that I don't agree with. But I think a lot of his policies, like on, I think people say it's nuanced, and I think it's kind of like it's a little bit nuanced, but it's a little bit straightforward. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think one of the issues, abortion,
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like it's straightforward to me. It's not nuanced, and there's terrible situations in every single one of these situations because it's like these impact a lot of people, these policies that people make, and but I think there's certain things to me that I'm just like I'm firm on, you know what I mean? And he agrees with some of those things that I'm firm on, like on abortion, you know what I mean? Because he at least vocally, publicly says his stance I agree with. You know what I mean? And
which is a big deal. Without, I mean, that's a big deal.
It's huge to me, like 3,000 babies are being killed every day, you know what I mean? That's a big deal, just in the U.S., So I mean, it's like it's a real big deal. And because he agrees with it, I appreciate that. There's other policies that I agree with that I appreciate, and if it's kind of like a contrast to me. If you look at Hillary, if you look at other options, right? It's like he's the best choice. It's kind of like what I look at him as, right?
Would you say he's the least of all the evils?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna agree with that. I mean, but personally, I'm not seeing too many of his policies like that. I'm seeing with my own eyes, It doesn't look like he's evil. Like it doesn't look like his policies are evil. You know what I mean? Like I think I agree with most of them. But at the end of the day, what I'm realizing now, and like what I've kind of realized, but like what I'm really realizing now, is like politics don't matter. You know what I mean? Like I think they affect things. They're important, right? But I feel like the biggest thing we can do is impact the people around us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I'm learning now.
Yeah.
And like back when I used to like message you on those your videos, like I still agree with what I was saying, but not so much. Like it's not that serious. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. Because ultimately it is about Jesus, right? And if me and you believe that politics were the way to fix the world, we would be politicians and not artists and creatives and Christians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's dope. So let me ask you this: in terms of the abortion thing, right? Which, and the video I did with Dr. Bruce Hoskins, like I stated that I think at some point birth control will become so foolproof that if you don't want to get pregnant, you just won't get pregnant. And people will be able to take a shot or something, and then boom, you're just not going to get pregnant for 10 years, 15 years, right? People who don't want to have babies won't have babies. And I think we'll look back at this era and we'll look back at abortion the way we look back on slavery, the way we look back on frontal lobotomies, right? Like we'll look back and be like, yo, we were barbaric. Like this was crazy, right? So I'm with you on abortion. This is where the struggle for me comes in, is if we actually look at the policies, I don't even say the policy, because I think policy is the wrong word, but the methods of how to reduce abortions by pro-life people, they've kind of proven to be ineffective. This is what I mean. If you're teaching people who are far from God, people who aren't saved, who don't have Jesus in them, you're teaching them abstinence-based program, you're pressing purity culture on them, and you're not allowing them to have access to birth control, access to condoms. That has pretty much proven to be ineffective in lowering the number of unwanted pregnancies, whereas pro-choice candidates, specifically under the Obama administration, they've seen the biggest drop-off of abortion since Roe v. Wade under pro-choice candidates who I would say, dang, I feel really uncomfortable about your position on this, but if we're going to gauge the fruit, this seems to be more effective than purity culture and abstinence program. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I'm definitely, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I really think that, it's an overall picture too. It's not just that issue. Like so, if you vote on somebody and like their stance might, reduce that issue, I think it's an overall, culture shift that we need. You know what I mean? Of course, and I think like, that's my stance. But it does make it hard, and. Yeah. I don't know.
I appreciate you acknowledging the nuance. Like I really do, because I think it is nuance. You know what I'm saying? I think it is nuance. Like I think I'm with you. When I look at what he says about the unborn, I'm like, wow, that makes sense. So I'm with you. I think it is nuanced in that. Do you think there's any part of what he does to you? Does it feel like he's pandering towards the white evangelical vote?
I mean, I think so. You know, like, but I don't know his heart. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, but I think, I mean, it makes sense that yeah, he's probably pandering a little bit. At the same time, I don't know his heart. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and he could have changed. You know, he might have changed
Yeah.
from 10 years from his comments. You know,
Yeah.
the stuff he's done. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's pandering. All the politicians.
Yes.
They're all pandering. So,
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the tough part, is that definitely comes off insincere, and it comes off because at one point he was pro-choice,
Yeah.
right? And then he's pro-life, but to the point where like he thinks women should be punished for abortions. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like, bro, like a couple years ago he was a Democrat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think women should be punished for abortions. You know, I think the clinics and the doctors should be. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know, and I like on that issue, I really think it's like a one or two. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like a meet in the middle type
Sure.
thing. For me,
Sure.
it's like you don't kill babies, period. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like,
So you feel like under any circumstances, should a woman be allowed to have an abortion, even in the health in the risk of the health of the woman, or
Yeah.
if the baby's gonna be born dead?
I mean, like honestly, it's a weird thing, but the way I think about that issue is like first off, that's like 1% of all abortions. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
Like possible, you know, so
Yes.
it's like if you reduce the 99%, we're making progress, but
Sure.
you know, there's still 1%. And
Sure.
to me, you're still killing human life, right? And it's like I think when it comes to like the injury, I mean, it's always a possibility. You know what I mean? It's never like a foolproof, like this baby's gonna die. You know, Jesus can work miracles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jesus can move mountains. You know, so he can save that baby, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you're still taking away human life that could possibly have had the opportunity to live, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think one of the tough parts is also, there's a couple things I've learned. One, when it comes to Down syndrome,
Yeah.
and they're like, you could do a test, you can find out if your baby has Down syndrome, and then you can know your options, you know. And I'm kind of like, I've worked with kids with Down syndrome, you know what I mean, like adults with Down syndrome, like why, like, and then for someone to like say that their lives don't matter, and that could be an option, but then advocate for those with disabilities, it's just such a contrast, you know what I mean? So when we had the opportunity to get that test done when my wife was pregnant, we just didn't do it because we're like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. We're having this baby, you know what I mean? So I think that's a bummer. I think another bummer in terms of policy, and this is, I guess, me arguing your point of view, is that 45% of women who get abortions have already had an abortion, which is like, that means it's really just a form of birth control.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not rape, and so those are very small cases, right? And then, but they also found out that 80% of abortions are done before 8 weeks. So it's just so much nuance to that, and I'm still trying to figure out my position on it.
Yeah.
To be specific, I don't know. I know that I think killing babies is wrong, and I lean towards a pro-life position. But it's kind of one of those things like, is it viable to allow people? You know what I'm saying? Like at whatever degree, to allow it as a necessary evil. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the part I just don't know. You know what I mean? And so if it was up to you, you would just outlaw all abortion?
I mean, if it was up to me, I would. I mean, I don't feel like it's a necessary. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't feel like it's necessary. I mean, like back in the day, like I feel like the great lengths that people would have gone for their child. You know what I mean? I feel like we're losing that. You know what I mean? I feel like people are more about themselves. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
People would die for their kids. You know
Fair
what I
enough.
mean? Now people want to live because their kid could possibly die or could possibly kill them, right?
Sure.
And it's like, to me, like, you know, as a human being, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, right? But at the same time, I'm like, no, you know, you put your kids first. You know what I mean? You put God first. You
Yeah.
trust in Him first,
Yeah.
you know?
Let me ask you this: Do you think, in terms of the pro-life position, do you think it's inconsistent to hold a position that says we are about the life of the unborn, but then to kind of hold policies that are dismissive of what those poor, impoverished kids grow up, you know, specifically kids of color grow up, and we're dismissive of the some of the systemic injustices of black people. We're dismissive of police brutality, right? Unfortunately, it happens, and we know police, for the majority, are good guys. They're good. They're just trying to do their part, but we still know that black people are over-policed. They're 3 to 4 times more likely to die by the hand of a police officer. And people say, well, white people are the biggest victim of black on black of police brutality. It's like, yeah, but not when you
Yeah,
the
like
the cap
percentage,
per
yeah.
capita, right? Black people are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by the hands of a police officer. So do you think Christians or white evangelicals or whatever socially conservative, like, do you think it's inconsistent of people to say, I'm pro-life when this baby's not born, but when it comes into this world,
Yeah.
figure it out?
Yeah, it's insane. That's insane, and I do think that, you know, when it comes to those statistics, you know what I mean. I think there's more black crime too. You know, realistically there is. You know, and where does that come from? I mean, I think it comes from partially the state of welfare. You know, the welfare state. You know, I think it's pushed on to black people often. You know, and you push that kind of lifestyle on to black people. You know, what's his name? I think it's Thomas Jefferson that said this, but he said that basically, like, you know, you don't make the, if, you know, if life's hard, you don't make life easier on the poor, because then they will, you know, be lazy. Life's easier. You know, if you make life harder on the poor, they'll work hard to not be poor anymore. They'll work hard to get to the next level, right? So that was basically something Thomas Jefferson, don't quote me, but Thomas Jefferson said, right? And so basically to me, it's like, you know, you push welfare on these people. A lot of people take it as an easier option, right? Because they're not given a good position in the first place, right? And so they take it as an easier option, and they look to the government for their, you know, for their opportunity instead of, you know, instead of working hard, and then they need to make ends meet, you know. So then maybe they, you know, commit a crime, right? And so that's often how it happens. You know what I mean, statistically, you know. And so that does account for some of that 3 to 4 times rate. You know what I mean? But obviously it's gross no matter what. You know, like nobody wants anybody to die. You know, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like. But I do think that the overall policies aren't helping black people. I think education is hurting the black community. You know what I mean? Like they're putting charter schools in you know, black communities right now, and like sticking them in front of a screen, right? You know, that's not education. You know what I mean? I mean, my education in Maine isn't education either. You know, I just dropped out of high school. Actually, it's kind of a weird thing, but
You dropped out of high school?
Yeah.
What?
yeah, I mean, like it's just, and it was because of this issue actually. I was in class, we were doing like a crimes unit, right?
Yeah.
And my teacher was like, you know, asking us which question we want to, you know, research. I said I want to do murder, and she said it's taken. So I said, can I do killing the unborn? She's like, abortion? Yeah, sure. So you're on the board, you know. People started like getting upset about it, talking to me about it. You know, like one thing that I think is super important is, like, you know, life happens at conception. You know what I mean? You know, according to science. You know.
Science. No, that's a scientific fact.
And so, like, at that case, like, just because it happened, like, you know, within 8 weeks, you know what I mean, that type of thing, it doesn't change it for me. You know what I mean? Like, that's still murder. You know. But so yeah, like, so we had this conversation. You know, my teacher was upset. You know, that, and said I couldn't research it anymore because we were having a conversation about it. You know, and it just turned out real bad. You know, the administration at my school ended up suspending me for a day after the whole
For
thing.
real?
Yeah, like I was respectful. You know, like as I left the room, I was like, you know, I love you guys. Like I left the room because I wasn't gonna stay. You know,
Yeah.
they were yelling at me. You know, I was like, you know, I love you guys, and I think we should be able to discuss things we disagree on. You know.
So you would be a minority in terms of your social
Oh
views?
yeah. I mean, at
Okay.
my school at least, you know, it's like definitely way more liberal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
More conservative, so, but anyways, so yeah, you know, I left the room. I said, like, I love you guys. You know, we should be able to discuss things we disagree on. You know, if you have the ears to hear this, you know, maybe you change your heart. Maybe you think about it. You know, if you don't, maybe you know, look at your own heart. But anyways, have a good day. You know, left the room, got suspended for a day.
Wow.
After being questioned all day. You know, same question. It's craziness. You know, and then so I came back. My parents had a meeting with the administration. I got suspended for 2 more days. No reason.
What?
You know? Yeah, it's crazy. So I like, this happens to so many kids in my school.
Sure.
You know? Mostly people who have conservative viewpoints or viewpoints that just don't
It's
drive.
public school.
Public school, yeah. And so yeah, here in my classrooms, you know, teachers told me one time that to vote for Donald Trump, you have to be a racist. What's the word for a racist cisgendered white male? You know, like just craziness. You know, and it's like that's the viewpoint of the school, like, you know, in general, like the majority. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good people in the school. There's a lot of amazing teachers in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's a lot of just, you know.
I think it's a bummer that we're so dismissive of anybody's position that's not our own. Like, I think it's like, oh man, like we want to fight for equality, and we want everybody's voice to be heard, and we don't want anybody marginalized unless you're a white male.
Yeah.
And then the hell with your perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just that is so inconsistent to me, and it's a bummer. Wow, that's a bummer. So you ended up, are you gonna finish? Were you a junior or senior?
Yeah, I'm a junior.
Okay, so homeschool. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I might do homeschooling. Realistically, I prefer not to, you know.
Okay.
Like, I'm in on this music thing, you know, so
Yeah.
it's just like, I love making music, you know, so
Yeah.
spending all those hours of your day where you could be making music or
Yeah.
making things happen,
Yeah.
you know, doing school to me is not the best, you know. And I'm finding, like, knowledge of education at school, you know, is not true knowledge. You know,
Yeah.
true knowledge comes from Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
His reading His Word and getting to know Him better. And that's something that even I've been out of school for like a month now. You know, like every day I'm like, I'm gonna read the Bible this time,
Yeah.
this time. You know,
Yeah.
and like the other things get in the way, and I can't do it anymore. You know,
I think what was beneficial for me for going to public school was just being exposed to different points of views.
Yeah.
I remember my sophomore year, I had a Democrat liberal history teacher, and my government teacher was like a hardcore Republican. And it's the same thing my senior year. And I would just have this juxtaposition of positions that was very helpful for me to understand. And so I guess that would be my thing is like, I think that's cool. I would just encourage you, like, keep being challenged, like keep being open to, and I feel like you are. I feel like in this interview, you're very like, you're cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause you're not like, it's this way. You know what I mean? Like, which I think is refreshing. And I think we could be sober about it, right? That's super dope. Now let me ask you this. Do you think, we talked about black crime and how black crime is high. And I'm a big advocate for personal responsibility, discipline, choices. This entire channel, like that's one of our cornerstones, right? Like I wake up early, I go to the gym, all right, like I love my wife. Do you think that part of the drawback of the things that have hit the black community are because of injustice, oppression, lack of access to economic mobility? So I don't know how familiar you are with like Black Wall Street, like black communities in Oklahoma built up their own infrastructure, built up their own economy, and the white people literally came and burned it down. And the police sanctioned it, right? To the 60s and 70s, because the biggest way, and Derek Minor was just on this thing, we just talked about this, and he broke this down, and I've noticed, the biggest way to build wealth, right? Wealth that you get passed down. And I don't know, like no one's passed down any land to me, so I don't think about this. I don't know if anybody's passed down land to you, or maybe your mom or your grandfather, but the biggest way they say to build wealth is to buy property and pass it down. Well, in the black community, there was a thing called redlining, where after white flight, which is like black people integrated back into white neighborhoods, all the white people left, and then redlining literally cut off parts where it wouldn't allow black people to get loans to buy houses. This is up into the 60s and the 70s. Interracial marriage was illegal until 69, I think, or 79, right? So there's, then when we're talking about the war on drugs, the crack epidemic, right? This isn't like weirdo conspiracy theory stuff, but like the CIA openly admitted to being complicit in allowing crack to come in from South America and flood the streets of black and brown communities, right? Right? It's crazy when you actually look at that stuff. Do you think because I look at that and I'm like, well, yes, but look at the conditions a lot of black people have grown up in. Where you're talking about multi-generations of poverty, multi-generations of not owning property, not having access to upward mobility. Do you think that may be the root factor to some of the stuff we're dealing with?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. You know, like,
because what you're admitting is systemic racism. That's what we're agreeing on, which a lot of people on the right would say, systemic racism, that's not a thing.
Well, I think it's partially like right now, you know, like I'm not racist, you know what I mean? Like my family's not racist, you know what I mean? Like, like I think it's like right now a lot of people aren't racist, you know? But a lot of people were racist, you know what I mean? A lot of people put people in terrible positions, and people are still struggling to get out of those positions, you know?
And we're dealing with the ramifications of that today.
Yeah, and I think part of it's from the government too, you know what I mean? I think the government's not helping.
Had definitely enabled and mismanaged.
Yeah, absolutely. And like whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. It's always, you know, tends to be the same every year, you know?
Yep.
And so, only as much as obviously I'm 17, you know, but as I see things happen, it's like it's not changing because Donald Trump's not going to change because of, we're getting more jobs, it's good, you know, but like, it's not changing because of Donald Trump, it's not changing because of Obama, you know, it's just.
We can't put our faith in a politician.
We cannot. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think that's probably my cornerstone. You know, at this point, like, it's all about Jesus Christ. You know, so.
Yeah, I've been following a lot of Andrew Yang. Are you familiar with Andrew Yang?
Yeah, I've seen him on Instagram.
Yeah, so I've been checking out his interviews and kind of diving in. And one of the things he says, which is interesting, which I actually agree with, he says Donald Trump isn't the problem. He's a symptom to actual issues of people losing their jobs. It's just the way it's framed is that, well, the problem is immigrants are coming and taking jobs. And he's like, look, what's really taking jobs is automation. That by 2030, we're not going to have truck driving. Like truck driving is not going to be a thing by 2030. You know what I mean? Which is like one of I think that's the second or third largest profession in America, truck driving. That's not going to be a thing. We're not going to have retail spaces. A third of our malls are going to close down. You know what I mean? The average worker of a mall is a 39-year-old white woman, right? So that's about to be gone. So I think a lot of the pain that was felt by poor white communities, and not just poor white communities, poor Mexican communities, because Trump did get a big chunk of the Hispanic vote, was real problems, but maybe they were misdirected, and we weren't thinking of automation, advancement of technology. We were thinking the immigrants are taking the jobs. But that's not really what the math shows.
I mean, what I think about that issue is like, if you have a law, you gotta stand by it, you gotta like enforce it,
Yeah.
And so we have these laws that we just ignore, Some laws we take care of them, they're important to us, some of them we ignore, And that just doesn't make sense to me, So I feel like, a lot of people who come here legally do great things, A lot of people who come here illegally do great things, but a lot don't, you know what I mean? And so I feel like, I feel like we gotta fix the system for getting people in here the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously we need a cap, but right now it doesn't matter whether you have a cap, people are coming in.
Yeah.
So I mean, we need to have our capacity, but maybe expand it, maybe hire more people to deal with that job.
Yeah.
Then we wouldn't have to hire so many people to be in ICE enforcement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People would be taken care of.
Yeah. So I think things we would probably agree on is we would agree on fixing unwanted pregnancies. Right? We would be like, unwanted pregnancies is the real issue, abortion is the symptom. Maybe a culture that enables abortion is also whack, right? But like the symptom is unwanted pregnancies and poverty. How do we best fix poverty? What is best for people for poverty? And then we could say, oh, it's trickle down economics. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that, right? And I don't think either side is right. And then we would probably also agree. We'd also agree that people are feeling pain in these communities, that their jobs are going away. How do we solve that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you one clean answer,
Yeah.
Like, honestly, to me, my real position on this, is that if people had Jesus Christ, these problems would go away. You know what I mean? If people knew his love for them, they could get through any struggle that they have. You know what I mean? They wouldn't turn to welfare. They wouldn't turn to this, turn to that. You know what I mean? They wouldn't turn to these other alternatives that aren't really helping them. You know what I mean?
Do you think that Jesus is what changes their heart, but then we do need to add resources to that? And this is what I mean. I remember I had a pastor, a friend of mine, and I was going through my debt-free journey. Just so you know, I grew up super poor, was an immigrant. My mom was on welfare for 5 years. My dad wasn't in the picture. Bad upbringing. Wife is the same. But one of the things that did it for us was Jesus, right? Because we were saved. New hearts. But the second thing was we got exposed to Dave Ramsey and Financial Peace University. So we were able to, for the first time, get a hold of our finances and make better personal decisions, responsibility, discipline, right? All those things. And my pastor kept telling me, we just need to talk about Jesus. We just need to preach the gospel. I'm like, yeah, we need to preach the gospel, but we need to teach people about financial literacy. We need to teach people how to get out of debt. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's a whole lifestyle that Jesus Christ is about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just, you can, but, I think better than just saying, it's Jesus Christ, like, show them why, show them what Jesus Christ would do in this situation. Not just, it's Jesus Christ. You gotta show the ways, too, The ways are financial, you know what I mean? Like, there are things that you do as a Christian that you wouldn't do as a Christian, things, ways that you spend your money that you wouldn't have before, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think me and you would also agree on let's rely less on a government, which has proven to be ineffective, right, in a lot of problem solving, and let's us as Christians step up and sponsor people to go through Financial Peace University or help that single mother out by watching her kids so she can work their job, creating economic opportunity. Like I'm big on the reason why I'm growing so aggressively and trying to do more video stuff and all that, because I have people in my life that like, they're felons, dude. Like they're not gonna acclimate to society and just get a cool job and make $50,000 a year and live a happy life. Like they have to be entrepreneurial. So I carry that, right? And I think a lot of Christians do and a lot of conservatives do, but I think sometimes we oversimplify how heavy PTSD can be. Growing up in the hood, like I just found out I have complex PTSD. You know what I'm saying? How heavy mental health issues can be, how heavy abuse, and so I think we would agree on let's rely less on a government and let's create wealth so we could help other people.
I agree 100%. And I've been struggling with this. Like I don't like money. You know what I mean? And I'm like realizing like I have all these different ways that I can make money. You know what I mean? All these different opportunities, and like I'm trying to get into a space where I can accept that. You know what I mean? And like move forward with that, and trust that God's gonna take care of it, and also trust that I can take the money and do good things with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, because money's just a tool ultimately, right?
legitimately, yeah. And like it's so easy for people to like make that the center point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying everything I can to just not make it the center point. You know, like
Yeah.
let it go and focus on what's important. But with that, you know, money will come. You know, it's nice. And with that, you know, hopefully I can help people. Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, that's crucial.
Dope. Any final words, thoughts, application points?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is dope what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, this is so huge. Like, that daily proverbs thing that you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Are you still doing that?
I had that knee surgery,
Oh yeah.
and my whole routine got messed up. So I'm getting back on it. Like I'm almost back, and I'll probably get back on it when I get back home.
Yeah, that was so dope. Like, that was awesome. It's encouraging. So, yeah, everything you guys are doing at King's Dream is huge. So,
Thank you, man.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys watching this video. Make sure you guys are following Brett on all platforms. He's lit. The music's lit. He loves Jesus. I mean, what more do you want, man? Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave this in the comment section. Let me know, what do you guys think? How do we deal with some of these issues? Are you taking ownership of your life, your responsibility, while at the same time working hard to create opportunities for other people, man? Let me know what you think. Peace.